After winning the division in 2021, the Cowboys are in prime position to repeat in 2022. And today on Sports Around the Bar, I'm Jake, this is Drew, and we are talking and grading the Cowboys offseason to see if they've done enough of that.
Yeah, I think the last time the division winner was repeated was 2004 by the Philadelphia Eagles. Come on, Cowboy fans, we don't want that to happen again.
Absolutely not. So let's get right into it. We're going to start by talking about their free agency moves because, Drew, looking at all this, man, there is a lot of exodus here in Dallas. Are they losing too much to realistically challenge for the NFC East title this year?
I mean, yeah, my first concern is the offense. You look at the weapons being gone. Amari Cooper, Cedric Wilson, even Jarwin. Yeah, all three of them didn't play all season long. Their stats are still a little iffy, not definitely career highs for any of them. But I'm worried about, like, the targets. When you put the targets together, it's 182 targets. So when you think about that, you either got to pick that up in free agency or you got to pick that up in the draft. Is adding someone like James Washington and getting that young rookie, we'll come to him in a second, do those guys...
Don't get ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about the draft in a minute.
Do those guys bring enough to replace that kind of production? I'm a little questionable about it.
I definitely agree. You know, Amari Cooper's always been one of my big guys, and him leaving in Dallas for essentially a song in that 5th-round pick they got from Cleveland. To me, it's not good business, but still, you're seeing more than that leaving on the offensive side of the ball when we talk about Lyle Collins and Connor Williams both leaving in the offensive line. That has been the strength of this team for years now, is they have been in the top 5, top 3, top 2 or 1, realistically, conversation of offensive lines for the past few years. Now that that's starting to have some question marks and some turnover, are they going to be able to stay that dominant? We'll talk about if they've done enough to replace in there in just a second when we get to the draft as well.
Let's pay attention to the defense, the loss of Randy Gregory. I know that was a big name leaving their defense. I know maybe the stats weren't like where they wanted to be. You didn't like, I think it was, 6, 7, 8 sacks. Don't quote me.
6 sacks,
Don't
27 pressures.
But it is a loss. And
on only 400 snaps. So it's not like he played all season and had 6 snaps.
Right, but when you bring someone in, or when you have someone like that, you pay him like that, you want more production.
Right.
Replacing him in the offseason during the free agency, they brought in Dante Fowler.
Well, let's not forget, they did try to re-sign Gregory, and then some small language wound up just destroying the deal, and he ran off to Denver after the fact. So that's a pretty heavy loss. When you talk about losing what could be a potential superstar that I think most people say he's in that upper echelon of edge rushers in the league, losing a guy like that for something over as small as a little bit of language in page 87 of the contract, that hurts Cowboys fans. But they've done, I don't want to say a good job of replacing him with Dante Fowler, but they've gotten a quality player, I think, a decent player behind him to try to fill in that gap and try to replace with hopefully more talent around him.
Yeah, maybe Fowler doesn't have as high a ceiling now than Gregory probably still does. I think Fowler definitely came out a bigger name when he came out of college. But I think Fowler still has a lot of game left in him. He's played in a lot of great defenses. He's played in a lot of great defensive mind of coaches. So I think you're bringing in a guy that's going to replace the experience that Randy Gregory has.
And I had to put Greg Zuerlein on the list because, as crazy as it sounds, everybody disrespects kicker until you don't have one. It's not important until your kicker isn't on the team. So anytime you have turnover like that, it's something to watch because a missed field goal here, missed field goal there, those can rack up losses in today's NFL. It's really important to keep that sort of continuity going on. It was time to move on from Zuerlein, they felt, but still, I think that is an issue.
It is, but let's just admit that Zuerlein was not the Zuerlein of the past.
Okay, that's fine, and that's fair, but
it is an issue.
It's certainly something to watch going forward. Let's talk about their draft, though, Drew, because this group of guys, obviously when you get down to 24, especially in a draft that, let me couch it a little bit by saying, I felt like it was a pretty weak draft. I know some people are saying they felt like it was strong through the middle. I didn't really share those sort of sentiments. So when we're talking about a guy like Tyler Smith out of a school like Tulsa, that's a pretty small program to be taking a guy in the first round. Now, in other years, I would say this is probably a pretty big reach, but this year when you talk about getting down to number 24, the board, in my opinion, was getting kind of skinny. So they're still getting a run, just a mauler in the running game. They're getting a guy that is going to be a good run blocker. The question to me is he going to be ready day one to pass block at an NFL level? I'm not quite as sure about. So hard to grade is what I would call this pick. He certainly seems like their guy, and he's going to fit right in as that right tackle, potentially right guard if he doesn't have the athleticism to really play in the outside in the NFL. But with Lyle Collins leaving and with Connor Williams also leaving to head off to Miami, they had to do something to address that right side of the line.
Well, they definitely focused it on everything that we brought up in their losses. You look at it, offensive line, defensive line, wide receiver, tight end, another offensive line. I mean, they obviously realized the loss of those positions were huge, and they had to focus on it during this draft. Jalen Turbert out of South Alabama, the wide receiver. How much can he grow?
Another small school. Like, they got off the warpath here, and they said, we're going to go take some FCS guys that we like.
How much can he grow and be ready for week 1? That's
he
really
won't be.
But they need him to be.
And I hear what you're saying, but realistically, this is going to be on Gallup and CeeDee Lamb.
But
they're going to
Dak has always flourished with that third receiver. That's why Gallup is a name.
And well, hopefully James Washington's that third receiver, right?
It might be.
Yeah. Anyway, going on to the rest of this list, Sam Williams was a guy I felt they drafted a little too high. I think he's a guy that is physically a little bit limited when it comes to what he can do on the football field. But it's another edge rusher that hopefully if Dante Fowler doesn't work out, maybe the young guy is one that kind of fills in. They still have Micah Parsons. So
I was just about to say, I was like, they have kind of showed last year that they can, and the year before, that they can draft.
The need isn't there, but you can tell they want to keep it a strength, which is why they took Sam Williams. I do think I would have gone in another direction, but still, I respect the fact that they're still trying to attack that position and keep it as a strength that all of a sudden now, they're pretty good at rushing the passer in Dallas.
Yes, they are.
As far as the rest of these names go here, not a ton of really high-end talent, I think, coming off. Not a bunch of guys I would classify as a steal, except for maybe Damone Clark out of LSU. Very athletic, rangy linebacker, very sideline-to-sideline player. He's had some off-field issues. He's had some other things going on that here in the 5th round is exactly where you want to take it because you are not tied up in this pick. If it doesn't work,
the hope is that he's going to be the guy that replaces Micah when he comes out for that one play. This is a guy, hopefully in the future, maybe not this year, that's going to replace that guy.
Can also, you're going to see him a lot more as off-ball linebacker. Right, and Micah Parsons these days
is everywhere.
Do you stick him at the edge rusher? Do you let him play
everywhere.
Off-ball? You just get him on the field. Doesn't matter where.
He plays everywhere. We might be talking about Micah Parsons 2 years from now, maybe next year, being arguably the best defensive player in this league. I know Aaron Donald's a guy, but I think Micah has the experience to do it, or the talent to do it.
All right, Drew, we said we were going to do it, so let's grade the Cowboys offseason, man. I'm going to kick it to you first. How do you feel they did?
I really think I'm going to stick with a B here. I think that they focused on needs during the draft. I didn't like their all of what they could have done during the free agency, but I do like James Washington. I like that ad.
I got to be a little bit harsher. I tend to be the Mr. Negative on the show, but I'm going to go with a C-. We've seen a lot of departure from the Cowboys in terms of talent, and a lot more question marks rolling in to sort of replace those guys, especially when you talk about their draft. I think they've taken shots on guys that they might like from smaller schools that might take a little bit longer to develop. I got to admit that this is sort of a purge of talent. It feels like they aren't going to be quite as good as they were last year, at least on paper. Things, sometimes you get that rookie who steps up or that guy who comes out of nowhere. But to me, when I look at it, there's a lot walking out the door, and you've got a lot of guys that you're looking around like, hey, you're going to be Amari Cooper, right? You're going to be Lyle Collins, right? You're going to be Connor Williams, right?
They're going to be.
And I want to see it. That's all I'm saying. So to me, I'm going to give it a C-. We knew this was coming a little bit. They kind of like saved up that big punch for 2021, saying that was our year. I still think they're in very good position here. But let's talk about 2022. How do you see this team going forward?
I mean, they're still the division winners. They're going to repeat for the first time since 2004. And they're going to do it off the shoulder and arm of Dak Prescott. I believe that this year, after 2 years of being hurt, I know his last year was just one game, but you'd still like to see your large paid contracted quarterback out there for all 17 games. So I believe they're going to put everything on him. He is the face of the franchise, and Dak is going to lead him to win this division.
I think they're going to be in for a little bit more of a dogfight than we saw last year. I look at the way they played the Eagles and the way they sort of dominated in those 2 games here last season, Drew. I think things are going to be a little bit tighter because I like what the Eagles have done this offseason, but I still think the Cowboys are the favorite. I'm in a similar boat and say that there's so much talent still on this roster, even though they've seen guys walk out. They should win this division for the first time back-to-back since 2004 like we talked about. Hey, guys. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and ring the bell to stay up to date with all of our NFL videos as well as everything else we're talking about in sports.
We have a great community on Facebook already, but we're trying to grow our community on YouTube because we believe you guys can talk sports just as well as anybody else, and we can't wait to have those conversations with you.
So grab a drink, hit subscribe, come talk sports with us.